Hello, my name is Lexi Jong and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be going over the NATASHA DENONA GLAM palette. And as you can see, I definitely have my fingerprints all over it already. So let me start off by going over the packaging. I ordered my palette from Sephora and I have to say that it came super well wrapped. So the palette itself comes in this box, and then around the box I had this kind of like this corrugated waxed cardboard, and then it was in another box, and then it was wrapped in like the brown paper, and then it was in the Sephora box, you know, with padding and everything. So it was definitely securely packaged. This is the box that it comes in, and it does have the names of the eyeshadow colors written on the back, so you can kind of reference that. This is made in Italy. It's paraben free, not tested on animals, and this has a 24-month expiration date. The actual palette itself has kind of like a light pewter tone to it. It's not quite as deep as pewter, but it's got that it's like reminiscent of that. So it's like a lighter version. And this, you know, it's plastic, but it has a little bit more of a metallic feeling to it. And then we have the full-size mirror here, and here are the actual shadows. The back, it is plastic. It's kind of like it's not like rubberized completely, but it does have a little bit more of a rubbery texture, which helps prevent it from like sliding off, whereas this side is much more slippery. You can see you've got the pinholes here so you can rearrange the shadows. And the shadow names, I'm sure you guys have seen already. They are all named after areas that NATASHA DENONA recommended for application. So we have several center eyelids, we've got inner corner, and so forth. And one of the reasons that these circles are going to be so helpful is that you can actually take a pin, push out your eyeshadow, and rearrange them. And she actually has some suggestions on how to rearrange them depending on your skin tone. So that I think is kind of helpful, but personally, I'm not really a fan of the names. I just think it's kind of confusing having more than one of the same name. If she had named them like center eyelid 1 and center eyelid 2, that would have been a little bit more helpful than just having several that just say center eyelid. So that's just my personal opinion, but I think the concept behind it is kind of interesting, and it would be really helpful for a beginner or somebody like me who is just, you know, I'm not super great at eyeshadow application in general. So taking her suggestions can be helpful, especially if you have no clue what you want to start with. It's always a nice to have a guideline. I have used this palette quite a bit already, and I have tested every color, and you can see that some of the shades do have a little kick up in the pan. It's nothing much. Typically when I take a crease brush and swirl it in there, I'm getting a little bit of dust, nothing major. The glitter shades haven't been too glittery, and actually as a fallout on the face, I don't really have too much fallout from these shadows, except when I'm taking one of these flat liner brushes. This is the Esom T05. When I'm stamping it, I pretty much always get fallout of whatever shade I am using. And I have had, like, you know, the occasional stray piece of fallout from the other shadows, but for the most part, they're really good about staying put where you put them. Before we move on to swatches, let me go ahead and share with you some information from NATASHA DENONA about this palette. It is the ultimate user-friendly must-have palette for makeup artists and makeup lovers, featuring 15 cool and neutral warm shades with matte, metallic, and sparkling finishes. And for the first time, presenting special insider makeup tips from NATASHA DENONA herself by naming the shade names after their ideal place to apply them in order to recreate NATASHA DENONA's Day to Glam makeup looks. The eyeshadows are formulated with crushed pearls and crystals, and there are varied, distinctive textures for seamless blending and maximum color payoff to achieve vibrant, ultra-pigmented, long-lasting looks. The total net weight of this palette is 19.25 grams or 0.67 ounces. This is my first NATASHA DENONA palette of this size, but I believe it is the same size compact as that of the bronze palette, which was her most recent release until now. And just a note, NATASHA DENONA's website, if you look this palette up on her website, she does have actual shade numbers for each of these shadows along with the description. So when I show you the arm swatches, I will go ahead and put those shade numbers down there as well so you can reference those. First, let's go over the swatches for this palette, and then I have an all-day wear test without any primer to show you how the shadows lasted throughout the day. And then following that, we'll go over some eye looks and then meet back here for my thoughts and some shade comparisons. This here is the top row for the Glam palette. So the next 4 colors for the second row. This is the last color in the second row. First 4 shades in the last row. And this is the last shade in the third row. Let's go through each of these swatches. The first shade in the palette is called Center Eyelid, and this is number 320M, and it is described as a dusty light rose, and you can see it's a soft metallic, very comfortable. Next up, we have Outer Eyelid, number 321M, and this is a medium warm gray brown, and again, this is going to be another soft metallic. The inner corner shade here, 322K, Peachy Champagne, soft metallic. Next up, we have Crease, which is number 323CM, and it's a medium cool taupe. This one you can barely see. This is the last shade in the first row, and this is called Transition. And this is number 324CM, and it's a mushroom gray. I'd say it's really got a lot of ivory in it with just a tint of that mushroom gray. It's pretty hard to see it on me. Starting off the second row, we have this shade here, which is called Smoke, and this is 325CM, medium cool brown. Next, we have Blend 326CM, Cool Sienna, and you can see it's kind of got a little bit of that clay color. And these are all mattes here. And so is this next one here, Lash Line 327CM, Deep Cool Brown. And this is the deepest shade. You can see that it's got a little bit of a black base in it. Next up, we have Inner Corner 328M, and this is Abalone. And this one here is going to be a firmer metallic. It's not as soft. And neither is this next one here. So this one's also firmer. This is Center Eyelid 329M, medium warm silver. Now we're starting off the third row with this gold shade here. This is called Center Eyelid, and it's 330M Golden Nude. We're back to a soft metallic here. Outer Eyelid 331M Pecan Brown, and this is going to be a firmer metallic. So you can see these firmer metallics are a little bit more satiny than quite so richly shiny. Then next up, we have Center Eyelid 332M Light Nude. You can see it's a little bit more of a beigey champagne. Next up, we have Outer Eyelid 333M Medium Cool Gray Brown. This is a firmer metallic. And our last shade here is Brow Bone 334M Neutral Champagne. And it's got a little bit of a light bronzy look to it. I'm going to show you some static shots of the swatches, and then we are going to take a look at the all-day wear test and then a few looks, and I'll meet you back here in a few minutes. I'm not wearing any eye primer today. We're going to be going in with the Rougher 15 into this shade called Crease. This is the top of the palette, so this is the top right side. And take the Sonia G Soft Shader in the transition. Just gonna kind of put this kind of on the inner crease and a little bit of the inner third. And take a little bit more of that transition and just kind of dust it up into the brow. And then I'm going to go into this shade up right below that, the center eyelid shade, and same brush. I'm going to apply this all over. Going the same brush, going into center eyelid, the pink one. I'm going to put this right in the middle. And I'm just gonna kind of tap whatever's left kind of towards the outer edge. And I'm going in just with a little bit of this outer eyelid shade right next to that, and I'm gonna put this on the outer corner. So I'm just using a small amount. Back in with the Rifle 15, no shadow. Just kind of blending a little. Taking the Rifle 03 into this inner corner shade. And I am going to use it in the inner corner. And then we'll try this brow bone shade on the brow bone. Taking the Rifle 15 and just kind of buffing that in. And I'm going to do my makeup before I put on the lash line shades. For the lower lash line, I'm going back in with the Rifle 03, and I'm going to go into this crease shade for the inner portion, and then I'm going to go into this center eyelid shade for the outer portion. So I'm carrying past the halfway point so that I can smudge the two together. For the upper lash line, I'm going in with this deep shade that says Lash Line with the Esom T05, and I'm just going to stamp it. And that's it. I'm just taking the Rifle 15, just cleaning up anything here. And I got a tiny bit of fallout here from the lash line from my stamping. So just swiping that away. I'm going to add mascara, and then I'll be back with a distance shot. And this is the final look from a distance. I really like the way it turned out. I think it is light and bright. So I kept things on my face pretty light as well. I have a mix of the Cocondo Aqua Foundation on with the Chanel Rosy Light Drops. You can see I had a little mishap, so I have to clean that up. And then I have the Chantecaille Lip Chic in Rose de May. This is the limited edition one. And for blush, I have the By Terry, this is number 4, Nude Dance. And I have the bronzer in Goa from Chantecaille and the Guerlain Meteorites dusted over, as well as the pink from the highlighting trio on. So I think that sums everything up, and thanks so much. It has been 7.5 hours, and I just wanted to show you what is going on with the eyeshadows. And you can see it hasn't like truly creased. Like I'm not actually to the point where I see skin, but some of the shimmery part has started to kind of like, it's disappeared like in this area. So it's starting to crease up, and you can see here on this eye too. So I still have shadow there, but the shimmer part of the shadow has disappeared from that area. So I hope that makes sense, and you can kind of see that. But again, no primer or anything today, so pretty good. When I checked at exactly 7 hours, it wasn't like this yet. So it's kind of progressing a little bit more rapidly now. It started around the 7 hour, between 7 and 7.5 hour mark. It has been just over 11 hours now, and you can see what has happened to the shadows. And there we go. Taking the Refer 15 and going into this shade called Crease. Refer 14 in Smoke. Just getting some on the tip. And dab a little bit more here. So I'm concentrating it at the outer corner of the crease area, a little bit on this outer piece of the mobile lid, and just kind of softening it in. So UG Soft Shader in this shade Brow Bone. Same brush, the shade Blend. I'm gonna put this right next to that and kind of go over the rest of the mobile lid, and I'm tapping over where I already have the Brow Bone shade. I'm gonna add more of that. Wiping off the brush and going back into the Brow Bone shade. And now I'm tapping over that Blend shade in the middle. Wiping off the brush and going into the outer eyelid shade. And I'm just gonna work my way from the outside in. Wiping off the brush and just kind of tapping over the transition area. Going back in with the Refer 15 with no additional shadow and just blending. Taking the Refer 03 in this center eyelid shade. I just twirled it in there. This is going to be for the inner corner. Just going to get a little bit more and use this under the inner third of the lower lash line. And now same brush, outer eyelid. And I'm just going to finish up this lower lash line with it. I'm just making sure to connect to the upper lash line. And I'm going to go ahead and use the shade, the outer eyelid, mixed with the crease shade, or lash line shade, sorry. And this is just going to be for the upper lash line now. Just making sure the lower and the upper lash line are connected. And there we go. That's the first look for today. For the next, I'm taking the Esom G34 into this transition shade. And I'm going to buff this in the crease and kind of all over. So I'm concentrating it in the crease, but I'm letting it go all the way up to my brow and even on the mobile lid a bit. Wiping off the Refer 14 from before, I'm going to go into this shade Blend. Then I'm taking the Refer 02 into this shade Lash Line. And you can see it's quite dark. I'm going to apply this to the outer portion of the eyelid. So the outer half, basically. I'm going to wipe the rest of my brush off here. And then I'm taking that Rephr 14 that I just used, and I'm just going to kind of move some of this into the crease. We'll leave it like that for now. I'm taking this brush, I know it still looks dirty, but I did actually wipe it off, and I'm going to go into this pinky center eyelid shade. I'm going to apply this all over the lid, starting with the inner corner. I just love how like smoked out it gets a little bit at the edge there. Just kind of tapping over that center area a little bit more. And going back in with the Rephr 14 and just cleaning up this crease. You could really smoke this out nicely with a winged eye. I'm going to take the Esom TZR5 and I'm going to go into the lash line shade and just line the upper lashes with this. So without getting any additional shadow, I'm just gonna add a little bit of whatever's left onto the corner of the lower lash line. And I'm just dragging it inwards. And I want to lighten that up. So now I wiped off the brush and I'm going into this center eyelid shade. And I'm going to put this on the lower lash line, starting from the inside. For the inner corner, I'm taking the Rephr 23. I'm going into this gold center eyelid shade. So I just twirled my brush there. And that's it. That's this look. All right, I'll be right back and we will do a couple more. For this next eye, I want to focus on these four colors here. So this shade Brow Bone, I am going to take the Rephr 15 and I'm going to use this in the crease. Taking the Sonia G Builder 2 into this outer eyelid shade. Using the other side of the brush, I did wipe it off. We're going to go into this center eyelid shade, this more silvery one. And I am overlapping just past the halfway point. Taking the Rephr 23 in this inner corner shade. Dab a little bit of this under the brow arch. I'm going to do the whole lash line, upper and lower, in this outer eyelid shade. And I am using the Refer 23 still. For the lower lash line, I am just using what's left on the brush. I'm not digging in to get more. Taking that Refer 15 again and just cleaning up here. Blurring in that brow arch a little bit. And there's this eye. This one's a pretty silvery eye, so now on the other eye we're going to go with more of a gold tone look. Refer 15 in the shade Blend. Builder 3 in this outer eyelid shade. Spread that a little bit further. Then I'm taking the tip of this brush into lash line. So just on the very tip. And I'm gonna kind of stamp it in this crease curve. And then just right at the outer edge. Refer 14, no shadow. Just gonna kind of buff that. Sonia G, Builder 3 in this gold center eyelid shade. I'm taking my finger in the same shade. I'm just going to tap a little bit extra right in the center. Refer 15, no shadow, just blending here. E7 T05 in the shade Lash Line. What's left is going on the lower lash line for the outer half. I'm taking the Refer 23 in the gold. And this is going to go in the lower lash line. And take this shade Center Eyelid, the Refer 23, and this is going to be the inner corner and the brow arch. Refer 15, just blurring that a little. And there's my silver and gold looks. This is going to be my final look for the day. So I did apply the Hourglass Veil Eye Primer, and we are going to be using the Esom G34 in the Transitions shade. And I'm going to put that kind of focused in the crease, but let it spread all over. Next, I'm taking a Sonia G Classic Crease, and I'm going to go into the shade next to it called Crease. Just adding a little bit more to this side. Sonia G Worker Pro in this outer eyelid shade. Sonia G Mini Booster, no additional shadow, but I'm going to blend some of that into the crease. Sonia G Worker Pro in this center eyelid silvery shade. Next up, same brush, I'm taking this inner corner and outer eyelid shade. I'm going to add a little bit of both. So just a little mix. I need a little more of this inner corner shade here. Taking the classic crease from Sonia G and just kind of blending the edges. Taking that mini booster, and I'm not using any shadow, I'm just kind of blending where everything overlaps. I was gonna actually add that pink shade kind of all over everything, but kind of like it just as it is. So I think I'm going to leave it like this, and I'll just add a little bit of the pink to the inner corner. So I'm taking the Sonia G Pencil 1 into this pink center eyelid shade. I just twirl the tip. Dragging that down a little bit. And what's left is going under the brow arch. Just taking that mini booster again and just kind of diffusing that a little. You know, I do really like this, but let's go ahead and we're gonna add the pink. So I'm taking the mini booster, so it's a lighter, fluffier brush. And I'm just gently pressing it in there, and I'm gonna add just a thin layer on top of everything. Back in with the classic crease, no shadow. Sonia G Flat Definer in the Lash Line shade. For the lower lash line, I'm going into this outer eyelid shade with the Flat Definer. And this is the final eye look. I am going to add some mascara, finish my makeup, and I'll be back. Let's go over my thoughts for this palette. I really, really love this palette. So I love cooler tone neutral shadows, and I feel like a lot of times when a palette is you know, described as a cool neutral, it still leans really warm. And what I like about this palette is it does have some shades that lean warm. They're warmer neutrals in here, but it has quite a few cooler toned ones as well. And I think that makes it pretty wearable. And it also gives you a lot of variety of looks, because often I like cooler tone looks, but I also really like to mix some warm shades into that. And I think this palette is incredibly versatile. Now, if you are not somebody who really loves neutrals, maybe this isn't the palette for you. I love neutrals and more understated eye looks. I love the ones that I came up with. I loved all of the ones that I came up with. So I don't even know if I have a favorite. The quality of these shadows is on par with her other shadows that have had. The quality of these shadows is excellent. So they are on par with the quality of the shadows in her two big palettes. These are the 28 pan palettes. So this is the purple blue. And then I also have the green brown here. And the reason I'm bringing these up is because if you happen to have both of these, although you won't have the same colors because the Glam palette does have all new shades, you do have some shades that are reminiscent of some of the ones in the Glam palette. So if you really wanted to, you could take out both of these and kind of get the same general idea from some of these shadows. Many people are already going to have shades similar to this in their collection. Now, me, I love cooler tone neutrals so much that just those slight nuances in a shadow make a huge difference to me. So even though I do have some cooler tone neutral shadows in my collection, for me, this palette is a must-have because I like having them all in the same place, and I love the variety of textures. NATASHA Denona does an excellent job with some of these textures. So she's got the creamy mattes, which I think apply beautifully. They stay put, they are easy to blend, and I don't have any issues with them fading. If I do an all matte eye, they actually stay on without primer. You know, I can go 10 to 12 hours with those with no creasing. The only issues I have sometimes with longevity are going to be some of her metallic shades, and she has different types of metallic shades. So there are some that are a little bit softer and are more foiled in texture. And then there are others that are going to be a little bit firmer in the pan and they have a little bit more of that satin finish. They're still very, pigmented and they still have that metallic vibe to them, but maybe not quite so much. And then she also has, those sparkling cream powders, which are chunky is not the right word, but the particles in them are a little bit bigger. It's a very soft shadow. So usually I'll use those for like the inner corner and so forth, or maybe like right down the center of the eyelid with my finger. So I do really love all of the formulas that she included in here. And I love having the mix of the warmer and cooler tone neutrals in here. It's about time, in my opinion, that somebody has made a palette like this that has so much variety. In summation, I love this palette. I definitely recommend it if you are somebody who likes neutral shadows, and I think the formula of these are excellent. So I recommend this hands down if that's something that would fit into your collection. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some shade comparisons. Okay, first up, this is the Chantecaille Luminescent Eye Shade in Cheetah. And I'm going to swatch this against a couple. Here is Cheetah. And then we have Center Eyelid from NATASHA Denona. And this is Inner Corner. Another Center Eyelid and Brow Bone. And you can see here that Cheetah doesn't really go with any of those, but it is kind of similar to these two mixed together. Let me show you which ones those are in the palette. So the top swatch is the Chantecaille Cheetah. And then we have the center eyelid here, followed by inner corner. Then the center eyelid here in the middle, and then brow bone. So you can see here that Cheetah is going to be similar to a mix of these two together. Next up, we have the Chantecaille Luminescent Eye Shade in Lion. This is a gold shade. You can see it's got a little bit of a bronzy look to it. I'm going to compare that to these two here, center eyelid and outer eyelid. Here's center eyelid, and here's outer eyelid. So if you mix the two of them together, let me show you what that looks like. Here's the two of them mixed. So you can see that it's going to be a little bit closer. This definitely has a little bit more bronze to it. Next up, we're going to look at the Chantecaille Elephant and Rhino shades. So here's Elephant, here's Rhino. And you can see Rhino does have a multicolored sparkle to it. I'm going to compare this to outer eyelid here. And this is really the only shade, in my opinion, that is close to these. I think it's kind of a mix of Elephant and Rhino together, but less sparkly. These are the top three shades in Soft Cashmere and the bottom two. We're going to compare the top shade to this pinky shade and this one here. So this is outer eyelid, and then we'll do this middle one, inner corner. All right, I'm going to put these right here so you can kind of see next to them. And you can see that it's the NATASHA Denona is way pinker. This one, the inner corner one, is going to be a little bit more gold. This one's going to be a little more brown from Soft Cashmere. This is the shade in between those two. We'll put that over here. Really doesn't go well with that top shade. Let's compare it to this one here. So that shade is kind of similar, but it's really more of a cross between these two from the Soft Cashmere. Another thing, can you see this one is going to be a lot more sparkly in the Soft Cashmere. And then this outer eyelid shade here, we're going to compare to the middle shade here from the Soft Cashmere. You can see that they are similar, but the NATASHA Denona has a bit more gold in it. It's also more sparkly. I'm just gonna swatch those again and show you all of them kind of next to each other a little bit better. So this is the outer eyelid shade from NATASHA Denona. And you can see that that's gonna be the closest match there. But the NATASHA Denona is gonna be more sparkly. That is this shade right here. And then I'm gonna swatch this outer eyelid shade. And I'm gonna stick that right here next to the third shade here so you can kind of see how similar those two are. The rest of them I don't think are all that similar. Next closest, this is the lash line shade from Natasha Denona, and you can see that the deepest shade, it's really more of a black brown compared to the soft cashmere, which has a little bit more of a reddish brown undertone to it, a little more mahogany. Next up, let's take a look at Tom Ford Nude Dip. So here's Nude Dip. This here is Center Eyelid. And we'll put that right there so you can see that it's a little bit more gold in Natasha Denona, but it does have a similarity. Next up, we'll take a look at Center Eyelid. I'm gonna stick that right here. And you can see that that is more similar to the Tom Ford, but it's a bit deeper in Natasha Denona. Then we're gonna try outer eyelid here. We're gonna put that one, we'll put that right at the bottom here. This is the closest shade to the darkest shade. There really isn't anything close to this shade in Nude Dip. And then the next closest here is the Lash Line Matte shade. So this is Tom Ford. These two are Natasha Denona. And then I just wanted to show you the palettes. This is the Natasha Denona Mini Glam, and it's really nothing like the shades in here. Yeah, they really just don't go together. So I'm going to swatch this for you and show you. So this here is the Natasha Denona Mini Glam palette, and you can see that these are all going to be much warmer than what you are getting in the new Glam palette. The closest is probably this one here. Let me swatch that with, this is Inner Corner from the top row. But you can see Inner Corner is going to be a little bit more pinky than that one. And this one, it really, yeah, none of these other ones really have a match. They are all just a bit warmer toned than everything in the Glam palette. Then the last thing I have for comparisons, this is the Viseart Cashmere palette, and I swatched the 3 mattes and then the 3 shimmers. This is the Smoke shade from Natasha Denona. You can see that that is going to be pretty similar. I'm going to swatch the Transition shade. You can see it's got a little bit more of that mushroom gray than the Cashmere, which is really more of an ivory. Here is Lash Line from Natasha Denona. You can see it's definitely got more of a black base. This is Inner Corner from the second row. You can see it's going to be a little bit more gold. It's also going to be a lot more metallic. This is Brow Bone, the very last shade in the palette. It's going to be a bit more gold than the Cashmere. And this last shade here is Outer Eyelid, which is right, it's the second to last shade. You can see it's definitely going to be a lot more of that brown shade, less gray than the Cashmere palette. I hope the swatches were helpful, and I think pretty much everybody probably has some similar shades in their collection, and it's really about whether you want something curated all together in one palette or if you want to kind of mix and match, because I definitely had some shades that I would consider close enough from other palettes or singles, but I really love having them all together, and I love the performance of these, and in some cases the textures were different too, similar color matches. So for me, this palette is a win. If I were not doing a YouTube channel, I could see myself using this every single day. I'm not even joking. These are the types of colors I go for, and you know, I could use this every day and just occasionally add in like a pop of colors. You know, I love the purples and blues and greens too, and I can see mixing and matching those in with this very, very easily. So for me, this is definitely like an everyday go-to palette, and I love it. I love the shimmers. I also love the mattes that are in here. And I have to say, sometimes I've had issues with some of Natasha Denona's mattes in some of her previous palettes. And, you know, they were like a little patchy or chalky feeling. But with these, I haven't had issues with any of them. I didn't have problems with any of the colors, actually. I think they all performed very, very well. I thought they were all excellent quality. And You know, there have been so many makeup releases coming out, and with the bronze palette being so recent, I was a little nervous that the quality wouldn't be up to par because the releases just seem so close. I didn't want it to be a rushed palette, but I really think after testing this out that this palette has probably been in the works for a long time, and this and the bronze palette were more of a companion to each other. And I didn't pick up the bronze because I thought the colors were too warm tone for what I was looking for, but I absolutely love this. I'm so glad I have it. I hope this review was helpful. If you have this palette, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on it, and if you don't, what do you think? Is this something that you need in a collection, or is it something you plan on passing? So please let me know down below in the comments. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Stay safe and healthy, and see you soon.